All right, welcome back to part 2 of my 4th submission. We just finished showing Star Wars 68 Newsstand from the last book of the first part of the submission. And today we're going to be kicking off with Wolverine number 1 from the 1982 limited series. If you're new here, welcome. Go back and watch the first part. This is the second part of a 25 book submission. And I've done other submissions as well and unboxing. So what I do today, just quickly, is I will go through the books that are remaining in the submission. I'll show a retrospective because I've sold all of these already, most of these anyway. And I will tell you what work was done, if there's anything notable. I'll tell you what grade I expected, how much it cost me, and then we'll see if I made any money back, and maybe a little bit of profit as well. So let's kick off. Wolverine, iconic cover, Frank Miller. Bought this from an online seller for $140. I paid a fair bit for it. It looked nice. It looked really nice. The spine was decent, and there's a line, I can't see because it's a retrospective, but there's on the right side of the book, I believe, there was a little thing that looked like a bit of color rub. I actually had a look and it seems to be a manufacturing or a common defect on some of these. I've seen it on 9.8s, but there were some creases and light scratches on the back cover along the edge. Couldn't soften them anymore. I worked the book, tidied up the rest, got rid of the spine ticks, softened all that. I think it came out, you can see it looking really good. I thought it was going to come back as a 9.2, best case. Sent it to CGC, and they said 9.2. So I think that's spot on, and that's a great book. What they've quoted is spine stress lines the cover and a crease on the left bottom of the back cover. So those gouges, or the gouges, they've marked as a crease, which is perfectly acceptable. And that book was is already stamped up and gone for I think a slight profit. No, a bit of a loss on that one, unfortunately. So I must have been expecting a bit better. Like I said, it presented beautifully. Moving on, another iconic Wolverine cover. So we've got some great books today. Number 17, I think it's a John Byrne, the red cover with Wolverine lunging. It's a beautiful book. I bought this for $15 from an eBay, a Facebook seller. Came in, looked nice, but it had some tanning. And a bit of a wiggly sort of non-color breaking crease on the front cover. So I pushed through, cleaned up the tanning, pressed it a couple of times, and really just tried to maximize its potential, because the book was otherwise in really nice condition, no real ticks to speak of, sharp corners. And then, yeah, so I was hopeful of anywhere between 9.2 to 9.6, depending how they would see some of that crease. I thought of non-color breaking crease. Sent to CGC, and they said 9.8, so happy with that. Yeah, great book to have a 9.8, and it does, it looks great. You can see the picture of it. So that little crease, I reduced it pretty much, but it was either a manufacturing issue or just counted negligible. So happy to have that 9.8, and this was snapped up almost immediately, and whoever got that will be very happy. Moving on to X-Men number 2, 1991 series, newsstand edition. Got this from that coin shop I may have mentioned before that was selling comics. Had a bindery tear on the top of the spine, which you might be able to see in the picture on the top left, but it had massive oxidation on the front and back covers. I'm not sure if I had pictures of it. I don't know if I took any. And I tried to remove that. I spent a fair bit of time on this. The book itself only cost me $7, but I spent a lot more in time and effort getting all the tanning off. It's a lot of work. But you know, you've got to practice these things to do it when it counts. So I'm happy to do that. I think it came out really well. Yeah, I was really persistent with it. I worked it over. You know, I'm now so far in that I can actually get some of these things done in a relatively good way. And this, again, it was a good book to work on. Anyway, so I sent it through to CGC expecting somewhere in the 9.6 range with an outside chance of a 9.8. Again, not sure how that bindery tear would be seen. You can't ignore these things. CGC had a look and they said 9.6. So yeah, pretty happy with that considering where the book came from. They've quoted spine stress lines the cover, and I believe there were a couple on the back cover. So that's perfectly fine. That book has been maximized, in my opinion, as much as it could have. Moving on to X-Men 130 newsstand editions. So the next few books are all going to be X-Men. There are a couple of others at the end, and a lot of them are keys. So this is the first appearance of Dazzler, and it cost me $63 from that guy who was liquidating some of his collection, and I was quite happy with it. I noticed some work on the back and it looked clean, but there's a bit of softness on the top of the spine and small ticks. So after I was done with it, worked it through, got rid of some of the gunk and bits and pieces, pressed it a couple of times. I thought it was going to come somewhere in the 9.4 to 9.6 range. Sent it to CGC and they said 9.4. So that's, certainly in the range, at the lower range. And what they quoted in the grade notes were spine stress lines to the cover. So yeah, quite a few spine stress lines, but I think the spine softness actually did impact that as well. So moving on to X-Men 133. So the first solo cover of Wolverine, which is a very, very exciting book to have. I paid a fair bit for this one again. This guy was liquidating his collection, but it looked great. I paid $208, so a lot of money. It looked great. I thought it was going to be a 9.8 contender. It was up there. It just looked immaculate online. When I got it and I opened it to have a look at it, near the bottom staple, there was a small puncture near the bottom staple, just not on it, but just a little bit above it. And it went all the way through. I opened the cover, I had a look, I could see light. Not ideal. So other than that, the book needed a bit of work, tidy up, just get it looking as good as it could. I couldn't do anything about that tear, unfortunately. And that's where I treated it. I assumed it was going to be a small tear and it would be seen and would be a 9.2. And that's where the book was. So I had to submit it, try and recoup some of my cash. As I said, I paid a fair bit for it. So I sent it to CGC, expecting a 9.2, and I got 9.6. So that's a great outcome. So the graded notes are staple tear to the bottom staple. So they must have assumed it was part of the staple processing that caused it. Maybe it was, and maybe it's a common defect on this book. And there were spine stress lines to the cover, which there were a couple, but the book was very good condition. So anyway, 9.6 is a great outcome. Really happy to get that. And this was again a book that just got picked up really quickly. So glad to get most of my money back and actually make some money on that one. So that was nice. Moving on, X-Men 134. This was from a different online seller. Came in, I paid $65 for it. The front cover had a crease from the crunch and some soft corners. There was a small gouge on the front cover that was really hard to get out. And, if the damage, If there's permanent damage, you can't do much about it. You can sort of try and soften it a bit. I worked it a lot, but there were some issues. And I couldn't see it going past a 9. In fact, I thought it was going to be a VF plus 8.5 to a 9. Worked it over, gave it a good chance, submitted to CGC, and they said 9.0. So I think that's right. And it was in the upper range of my expectations, and it was a slight loss. And the graded notes are creased to the left bottom of the front cover, which there is. It's from a crunch. I repaired as much as I could, but there was nothing more I could do to it. Made it as unobtrusive as possible. Moving on to X-Men 136 Newsstand Edition, another classic X-Men issue from that era with the Dark Phoenix saga, Cyclops cover. And it cost me $32 from that online seller who was selling things, selling his collection, I should say. It came in, it looked like a really solid copy with some figure bend creasing to the front cover, and light rippling along the bottom and top front cover edge. There's just all those non-color breaking creases. So I tried to work them down, reduce them as much as I could, really put some time into the book. Removed all the finger bends, obviously, and did my best there. I thought it turned out pretty well, but it wasn't what I would call perfect. I thought it was going to come somewhere in the 9.4 to 9.6 range. So I submitted it to CGC, and they said 9.8. Can't complain about that. So yeah, I must have really reduced the copy down. Maybe some of those light non-color breaking creases are a manufacturing issue again. Really happy to get a 9.8 newsstand edition of this book. I think it's the most valuable book in the submission by the time. Yeah, it was. So that's a great outcome from a $32 book. Wolverine on. X-Men 141, Wolverine on the cover, Days of Future Past, the last X-Men book before it became the Uncanny X-Men officially, even though it had it on the cover. It was really a pivotal issue, a lot of first appearances as well. Cost me a fair bit, $134 I paid for it. from that same online seller who was looking to move some of his books on. I removed a lot of fingerprints on the back cover, and there's a small yellow stain that I tried to clean off, and I think I lightened it a fair bit. But a few ticks were left. If that yellow stain was still visible or there, I think it was going to come in the VF Plus range, best case. But I thought it looked good enough to get a 9.4. So 9.4 is what I was expecting, having sent it to CGC, and they said 9.6. So another little bump on a valuable book. The greater notes are simply spine stress lines to the cover. So yeah, just a few good wins from these iconic X-Men issues from the early 80s. And yeah, and a bit more profit came out of this submission at this point. So fantastic. Moving on to X-Men 282, the first cover and cameo of Bishop. And this was a $15 book again from that coin shop that was selling comic books. There were lots of people buying, but I tried to spot some good books in the end. And then it was a clean copy. I just needed to press it a few times to get rid of some of the inner waviness. The inner pages had a bit of rippling in it, or waviness. So it took quite a few presses. It was a pain in the bum. Got it to a pretty good stage. I was expecting it to be a 9.8. I sent it to CGC and they said 9.8. So happy with that again. Another 9.8. Yeah, good profit. So moving on from that to another X-Men 282 from a different seller, an eBay seller. Cost me $19. It cost me more than the last one. Had a tick on the spine and a horizontal crease near the top of the back cover on the spine. I thought I was going to limit it to about a 9.2 to 9.4 range with that. I worked it over, gave it a bit of TLC, and submitted it expecting 9.2 to 9.4 because of that. And CGC said 9.6. So a little bit higher than I was expecting. And unfortunately, I saw a slight loss on this book. So recoup my costs at least. Moving on to X-Men 295. This was a polybagged edition, which I tried to remove the poly crease from the front cover from. I thought I'd got most of it out, if not all of it. It was maybe slightly visible in a slight angle. It was pretty good. It only cost me $10 from that coin shop. And yeah, I thought it would come back as a 9.8. I thought it looked pretty good. So I submitted to CGC and they said 9.4. So disappointing. Their quotes are spine stress lines to the cover and a crease on the bottom of the back cover. So I may have missed a crease, which is a bit disappointing because I was working on that, getting rid of that polyband poly crease for so long. I must have just missed a crease. So that's okay. Slight loss on that book. So moving on to Venom Lethal Protector #1 newsstand edition from that coin shop. I paid $61. I didn't work on this book for this submission. I worked on this book previously with the other Venom Lethal Protector submission I did. If you haven't watched that, go back and watch it. And you'll know that I hate the cardstock covers. I'm just no good at them. There's not much I can do. I just don't like working with them. I find them non-pliable. The issues tend to be hard to do anything with. So what happened is it had a little fingerprint on, it had a little bit of a bend on the bottom right corner, and I tried to put some water on it to try and soften, try and work it, but I did it on the foil side up. So I actually then ended up pressing some moisture into the cover and it just looked discolored. It looked like this massive, ugly fingerprint. Yeah, so I submitted it hoping for a 9.2 because I just need to recoup some of my money. And CGC had a look and they said 9.0. And I think that's right. And their greater notes are excellent. They said there's a crease on the right bottom of the front cover, which I was trying to work through and couldn't. And heat distortion on the right bottom of the front cover, which is exactly what it was. I moisture and heat, and it was just a horrible mistake. So it was just a book that was left over, and I didn't want to submit them together. So moving on to the last book of the submission, which is Batman the Killing Joke, an iconic Joker cover. It's a great book. Again, though, cardstock, so there's not much I can do. I got it, wiped it down, cleaned it as much as I could, pressed it a couple of times, and then just packed it. And I thought it would come back as a 9 because it had some scuffing and some little light scratches on the back. Nothing to do about them, nothing to do about them. Because it just scuffs so easily. So sent it to CGC and they said 9.0. And their notes again were pretty spot on. crease left center of back cover, crease right center of back cover, scuff top of back cover, and a crease right center front cover. So things that are permanent to the book, there's nothing you can do about them. You get the book like this, and that's just what it is. Cost me $56 if I didn't mention it. So again, took a loss on this to try and recoup some of my money and have a try. But yeah, cardstock, just avoiding it. So that completes the 25th book of the submission. Yeah, some really great outcomes with the Wolverines and the X-Men books, and some of the early Spider-Man as well, if you haven't watched part 1. So overall, the cost to the submission was about $2,100, $22, and the value received back was about $3,100. So a decent return for that one. Certainly better than my first one, which was barely break even. Yeah, and I've already received the results for submission 5. I'm just waiting to receive those books, and I will say that there is an absolute stunning outcome in that one. Thanks for watching.